They say a leopard can't change its spots, that a con man is always a con man. For Artie Fiddle, that summed up his reputation in Oakhaven. But what happens when the guy everyone loves to hate, the one parents warn their kids about, becomes their only hope? Imagine a lifetime perfecting the art of the con, now aimed not at an unsuspecting mark, but at a threat that could wipe them all out. This isn't just about a change of heart. It's about whether a master manipulator can pull off his biggest con ever. This time for the right reasons. Get ready for a story that blurs the lines between villain and hero, asking if one huge act of courage can truly wipe clean a lifetime of lies. We're looking at Arthur Fiddle, a name synonymous with scam in Oakhaven. Everyone thought they knew Artie, but when disaster struck, Artie Fiddle wasn't planning to steal. He was planning to save. This is the story of the Oakhaven redemption heist. Arthur Fiddle wasn't your average hustler. Artie saw himself as an artist, his medium trust, his canvas, the unsuspecting folks of Oakhaven. He wasn't truly malicious, never leaving people destitute, but he excelled at redirecting resources. His schemes were legendary. The Fiddle Family Fund, a charity perpetually about to be registered, collected for noble-sounding causes that mostly funded Artie's comfortable lifestyle. He also orchestrated the Oakhaven annual antique fair, where last week's flea market finds, quickly polished and given wild backstories, became rare heirlooms for eager buyers. His charm was his deadliest weapon, a disarming smile, a folksy tale for every occasion, and an uncanny ability to remember everyone's name, their dog's name, their kid's peanut allergy. He could talk a bird from a tree and then sell the tree back to it on a payment plan. He'd organize community events like the Summer Street Party, his knack for negotiating bulk discounts, always leaving a bit extra in his own pocket, a suspicion most held but could never prove. He offered investment opportunities in ventures perpetually on the verge of a breakthrough, a revolutionary non-stick pan, algae that cured baldness, shares in a bridge he didn't own but had convincing forged deeds for. Oakhaven regarded him with a peculiar blend of grudging admiration for his nerve and wary distrust. "That's just Artie," they'd sigh as he'd saunter by, dapper in a slightly dated suit, a twinkle in his eye. He was a notorious local legend. Mrs. Henderson from the bakery swore he'd sold her a self-kneading dough machine that was a modified cement mixer. Young Tommy Miller recalled Artie finding his lost bicycle for a finder's fee, moments after Tommy had seen Artie admiring it near the park. He wasn't a monster, more a charming, persistent pest, like a fox snagging an occasional egg, but never the whole flock. His scams were small-time, personal, exploiting minor vanities and lazy trust gently. He lived alone in a rundown Victorian house, a museum of his own cleverness, crammed with unsold trinkets from past scams. For years, Oakhaven's rhythm included Artie Fiddle hunting his next angle. Oakhaven's usual rhythm was shattered not by Artie, but by something far larger. A crisp corporate letter on every doorstep from Apex Corp development. It promised progress, revitalization, and a brighter future. It also mentioned compulsory purchase orders, rezoning, and a new 6-lane expressway and massive commercial complex slicing through their historic downtown. A place of cobblestone streets and family-owned shops. Confusion turned to disbelief, then to a rising tide of anger and fear. Apex Corp was a Goliath, a faceless company with deep pockets and deeper political connections. They presented studies and charts showing Oakhaven as underperforming. Their plan meant demolishing the bakery, the bookstore, the park, even the community hall Artie often used. Town meetings grew tense. Mayor Thompson, out of his depth, spoke of inevitable progress. Lawyers hired by a residents committee offered little hope. Apex Corp had followed obscure zoning laws, offering legally compliant but morally insulting compensation. Enough to oust people, not enough to rebuild. Despair settled over Oakhaven as residents faced losing everything, their community's fabric threatened by concrete and chain stores. For Artie Fiddle, this was different. His scams were within the community. This was an outside invader. He watched from the back of town hall meetings, his usual amusement inane, replaced by a somber thoughtfulness. He saw real fear in the eyes of those he gently fleeced. Mrs. Henderson, her bakery to become an off-ramp. Old Mr. Abernathy lost without his community garden. This wasn't a mark, it was annihilation. The game had changed. The stakes were no longer a few dollars, but the soul of his hunting ground, his home. Initially, Artie Fiddle sought his usual angle, personal profit from the chaos. A relocation assistance fund, exclusive consultations on Apex's buyout offers. Old habits die hard. He even drafted a prospectus for Oakhaven heritage bonds, designed to preserve the town's legacy while lining his pockets. But something felt wrong. Walking familiar streets, seeing condemned notices on doors he knew, an unfamiliar feeling surfaced. Empathy, perhaps? Or was it the pragmatist realizing a flattened Oakhaven meant no more easy marks, no more Mrs. Henderson for his quirky inventions? His ecosystem was threatened. One evening in his cluttered study, surrounded by relics of his deceptions, a counterfeit Ming vase, brochures for a non-existent lunar timeshare, a pirate map to the town's septic tank, he picked up a cheap snow globe. Inside, a tiny, perfect Oakhaven sat peacefully. He'd won it in a raffle he himself had rigged. The helplessness of his neighbors, Apex Corp's brutal efficiency, it insulted his professional pride. Apex was a clumsy bully using brute force. Artie's methods involved finesse, persuasion, understanding people. Apex didn't get Oakhaven. They wanted to erase it. He recalled a lawyer at a town meeting mentioning Apex's plan hinged on a final environmental impact report, EIR, and a crucial county zoning variance vote just 3 weeks away. The lawyer dismissed any chance of stopping it. It's airtight. Airtight, Artie smirked. He'd heard that before, usually right before finding the crack, the loophole, the persuadable human element. He thought of master forgers, the audacity of great cons. Could such skills be used differently? Not to take, but to protect? The idea wasn't a noble flash, but a professional challenge. Apex Corp seemed untouchable. Artie, master of the small con, saw them as the biggest mark of his career. The risk was immense. Failure meant Oakhaven's end. But outsmarting these corporate vultures, using his shady skills to pull the rug out from under them, that had an irresistible appeal. Perhaps it was con man's pride, or maybe, just maybe, something more. Once the decision was made, Artie felt a surprising clarity. This wasn't a job for Arthur Fiddle, the petty swindler. This needed a different persona, a grander operation, a heist. Not for money, but for Oakhaven's survival. On a fresh notepad, usually for fake business ventures, he wrote, Operation Save Oakhaven. His first hurdle, trust. He was Artie Fiddle. He approached the residence committee core. Mrs. Gable, the sharp retired school teacher, Tom Franklin, the honest hardware store owner, and young Chloe Jane, a tech-savvy barista documenting Apex's moves. He found them at Henderson's bakery, despairing over legal documents. Ladies, Tom, he began, his voice uncharacteristically serious. I believe Apex Corp can be stopped. They stared. Mrs. Gable's eyebrows shot up. Arthur, she said icily, we need a miracle, not one of your schemes. This is a scheme, Eleanor, Artie admitted, a hint of his old smile appearing. But it's the biggest, most complicated, and dare I say, most honest scheme I've ever conceived. I plan to use everything I know about creative problem solving to beat Apex at their own game. He outlined the basic idea, discredit Apex's EIR and sway, or delay, the zoning vote. He spoke of exploiting corporate arrogance, using their bureaucracy against them, finding unexpected pressure points. He mentioned social engineering, misdirection, perhaps some theatrical document procurement. Skepticism filled the air. Tom Franklin, whose family founded the hardware store, shook his head. Artie, they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. We're just us. And they're expecting just us to roll over, Artie countered. They're not expecting someone who understands bending rules, creating illusions, exploiting human weaknesses like greed and oversight, even in big corporations. Their strength is their size and perceived legitimacy. Our strength, he paused, looking at each, can be their underestimation of a desperate community led by a reformed sinner. Chloe Jane showed the first flicker of interest. What kind of creative problem solving? Artie leaned in. Let's just say their environmental report, it might not be as pristine as they think. In county council members, they have ears. They might be very interested in some new information. He didn't mention this new information might need meticulous crafting. It took hours. Artie, brutally honest about his skills and past, explained how these, usually selfishly used, could be repurposed. This wasn't about breaking laws, but bending perceptions, creating doubt, orchestrating Apex's unraveling. He was proposing to con the con artists. Slowly, reluctantly, a fragile alliance formed. They were desperate, and Artie, for all his faults, was undeniably clever. Oakhaven's most notorious son might be their only hope. The redemption heist was on. Artie Fiddle knew this wasn't a solo operation. His first recruits were the reluctant trio, Mrs. Gable, their research chief and moral compass, Tom Franklin, their face for legitimacy, a role he accepted reluctantly, and Chloe Jane, their tech guru for online digging and secure communications. But they needed more specialized skills. Artie tapped into his colorful network. There was Silas, a retired stage magician, master of misdirection, perfect for tricky physical tasks or document swaps from a past psychic fair scam. Then came Beansy Malone, a former forger Artie met in a county holding cell, a misunderstanding about historically significant baseball memorabilia, Artie claimed. Beansy's talent for faking signatures and documents was legendary. Supposedly straight, running a print shop, Artie knew Beansy would find a good cause challenge irresistible. The final key player was Agnes Periwinkle, the eccentric town birdwatcher and top gossip. Agnes knew everything about everyone, including comings and goings at the local Apex Corp satellite office. She could blend in while being incredibly observant. Their headquarters became the dusty back room of Tom's hardware store. Artie, like a general, laid out Phase 1. Discredit Apex Corp's Environmental Impact Report, EIR. Chloe researched Apex's past projects, finding whispers of cut corners. Mrs. Gable cross-referenced this with local environmental laws, identifying weak spots. Artie's plan was twofold. First, sow external doubt. Chloe anonymously fed carefully chosen, alarming but plausibly deniable concerns about Apex's Oakhaven EIR to local journalists and environmental bloggers. Agnes, birdwatching near Apex's office, noted the stressed local Apex liaison, Mr. Henderson. Second, internally they needed the detailed EIR. This was for Silas and Beansy. Agnes learned the full report was in a secure filing cabinet in Henderson's office. Henderson's routine, coffee at 8:05 a.m. from the deli, office unlocked for 5 crucial minutes. Silas, as a clumsy delivery driver with a fake urgent package, would create a diversion at 8:06 a.m., pulling Henderson and the secretary away. Beansy, as an office maintenance worker, would slip into Henderson's office, not to steal the report, too risky, but to use a tiny high-speed scanner, disguised as a dust-level meter, to copy key pages. Timing was critical. The tension during their dress rehearsal in Tom's office was palpable. This was far from Artie's usual low-stakes grifts. The EIR acquisition day arrived with a nervous energy. Chloe monitored police scanners. Mrs. Gable paced, muttering about backups. Tom fidgeted. Artie, however, seemed almost unnaturally calm. This was his stage. Agnes, on a park bench, signaled via coded bird call on a walkie-talkie. The early bird is leaving the nest. Henderson was off for coffee. Silas, in an ill-fitting delivery uniform pushing a wobbly hand truck of empty boxes, made his entrance. As Henderson returned, coffee in hand, Silas tripped, sending boxes tumbling across the Apex lobby. "Oh, my apologies. Terribly sorry. These are for Suite 2B, or is it 3C?" he babbled, creating a perfect whirlwind of confusion. Henderson, annoyed but distracted, and his secretary moved to help, their backs turned to Henderson's office for 90 crucial seconds. Beansy, having slipped in moments before, was already scanning, focusing on technical data, geological surveys, water table assessments. The details Apex assumed no small town would scrutinize. He was out, melting into the hallway bustle, 30 seconds before Silas finished his apologies and was misdirected. Back at the hardware store, Beansy uploaded hundreds of pages of dense, technical jargon. Now true artistry began. Mrs. Gable and Chloe, aided by a discreetly consulted retired geology professor from Mrs. Gable's book club, horrified by Apex's plans, pored over the documents. They found it, a buried reference to an acceptable level of subsoil instability near Willow Creek, an area Apex planned to culvert. The professor confirmed acceptable was an understatement, potentially problematic was more accurate. Another section dismissed the rare Oakhaven bluebell's presence as statistically insignificant. Agnes knew a significant patch bloomed right in a proposed drainage ditch's path. This was their ammunition. It needed to appear as an inside leak or from a credible whistleblower. This became Beansy's masterpiece. He didn't just forge, he created a narrative. He crafted internal memos and revised data sheets using meticulously copied Apex letterhead and fonts. These were works of art. One memo, supposedly from a fictional junior geologist within Apex, Alistair Fiddle, Artie's inside joke, expressed grave concerns about Willow Creek's soil data, complete with reanalyzed figures painting a riskier picture. Another memo highlighted the overlooked ecological significance of the Oakhaven bluebell, attaching a newly discovered historical survey map. Beansy even aged the document slightly, a faint coffee ring, a subtle fold, as if handled and worried over. The goal wasn't to prove Apex evil, just that their work was sloppy, rushed, possibly flawed, enough for the county council to demand a review, a delay. A delay was crucial for building more pressure. Artie's team has its ammunition. The forgeries are masterpieces, the plan breathtakingly audacious. Oakhaven's fate hangs balanced on a knife's edge. They've successfully poked the hornet's nest, acquiring documents and crafting their counter-narrative. But the real battle, the high-stakes confrontation at the county council, is about to begin. Will their meticulously assembled deception hold under intense scrutiny? Can this unlikely crew outwit a multi-billion-dollar Goliath? Or will Apex Corp see through their scheme, crushing Oakhaven's last hope? The clock is ticking. Everything Artie has gambled is on the line. Don't miss part 2 to witness the dramatic showdown. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the thrilling conclusion.